Hi everyone, welcome back to Algebra 2. Today we're going to be talking about circles. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at the geometric properties of circles. We will review those and then we'll show them, so we'll talk about how that's related to the algebraic representation. So if I do draw a circle here, or a rough sketch of one, in your geometry class you probably talked about circles, and circles have a part called a center, the point in the center. And then if you draw a line from the center to any point on the circle, we call that the radius. And if you know these two pieces of information, we can graph and write equations of circles in the coordinate plane. So we're going to be graphing and writing equations of circles in the coordinate plane today. So here we go. So the first thing you need to know is you need to know the standard form for an equation of a circle. So make sure you have this part written down somewhere, because this is the key piece of information for today's lesson. Standard form of a circle is x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. The center is the hk. And notice that whenever you see the equation, it's x minus the h and then h here. So when you look at it in the equation, it will be the opposite of whatever that x value of the center is. Same thing goes for the k. Whatever the k or the y coordinate of the center is, whenever you look at the equation, you'll see the opposite value. And then r is the radius. And just note that whenever it's in an equation, it's the radius squared. So here is an example of one that's already done. This is the graph of x plus 1 squared plus y minus 5 squared equals 4 squared. And if you see this written in a problem, you'll probably see it written more like x plus 1 squared plus y minus 5 squared. And instead of 4 squared, they'll write it as 16. And then it'll be up to you to pick out the radius. So if you look at the equation, I can take the opposite of this number, negative 1, and the opposite of this number, positive 5, and that is the center. And you see that graph right here, negative 1, positive 5. And then the radius is the square root of this number, or the square root of 16, which is 4. And we take the positive square root of 16 because we want the distance. Can't have a negative distance. So this distance right here is 4. Now it can be 4 this way, or I can draw a radius to any point of the circle, and it will be 4. All of these lengths are 4. So we'll do some examples like it. So this is example 1. We have to write our equation with the radius is 1.8, and the center is the origin. Now, when the center is the origin, that means it's on the where the point where the x and the y-axis meet. So the origin is the point 0, 0. So 0, 0 is the origin and also the center. So the h would be 0, the k would be 0, and the radius is 1.8. So when I go to write my equation, the formula is x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals the radius squared, or 1.8 squared. So then simplify everything. X minus h is going to be x minus 0. Now, I don't have to write the x minus 0 because x minus 0 is just x, so x squared. Plus, the k is 0, so y minus 0 squared, but y minus 0 is just y, so plus y squared equals the 1.8 squared, and I'll just square that. So 1.8 times 1.8 is 3.24. So the equation is x squared plus y squared equals 3.24. Then part B says, what would be the equation be if instead of the center being at the origin, if the center was at negative 4, 5? Well, it would look really similar, except the h instead of 0, the h would be negative 4, and the k would be negative 5. So I would take my equation again, x minus h squared plus y minus k squared sorry for that, equals, and my radius is still 1.8, so 1.8 squared. Then I'm going to substitute in -4 for the h. So x minus -4 would be +4 squared, plus y minus the k is 5, so I'm going to substitute 5 in for k, equals, and we said 1.8 squared was 3.24. So that's all you have to do. So one thing you'll have to know about the equations of circles is, first of all, you need to be able to recognize that this format is an equation of a circle. And then the other thing you need to be able to do is you need to be able to look at an equation of a circle and pick out the key features. So you need to look at this and say, oh, okay, I look at this number, I look at this number, I have the center, and then the square root of that's going to be my radius. So then here, let's do 2a has a center at 0, 0. So let's do something a little more interesting. Let's look at 2b. Find the equation of the circle described and sketch the graph. So this time the center is at 8, -3. So h is going to be 8. K is going to be -3. My equation is x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. And if the radius is 1, then r is 1. So let's see, when I substitute everything in, it'll be x minus the h is 8. So x minus 8 squared plus y, now minus k is -3, so minus -3 would be +3 squared equals radius squared, 1 squared, which is just 1. So I'm not even going to write the 1 squared, I'm just going to leave it as 1. Oh, I need my eraser. Where are you? Right there. Okay, then the other thing I need to do is I need to graph. So if I graph this, I believe whenever you have to graph it on Savvis, they have you drag points. If you graph it by hand, this is what you do, and then drag points works similarly. So let's graph it by hand. So I'm going to make sure my center is at 8, -3. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, -3. That center right there. And then since my radius is 1, then I'm going to go from my center to the right 1, up 1, back 1, down 1, and then this gives me a guide to kind of fill in the rest of the circle. So there we go. Now here's a question of that you would see on a standardized test that would test your knowledge of the equation of a circle, but then it would push it just a little bit further. So it tells you that the equation of a circle is x plus 2 squared plus y minus 8 squared equals 81. And they don't want to know the center or the radius, they actually want to know something about the circumference. So let's start with what we already know. I know that I can look at this equation and pull out the center. I know that the center is at the point, take the opposite of that number, -2, and the opposite of this number, +8. That's the center. The radius is the square root of 81. Because remember, the formula is x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals the radius squared. So the 81 is the radius squared. So that means the actual radius is 9. Now that doesn't answer the question. They want to know the circumference. So then I need to remember that the circumference is the distance around the circle. So what's that distance around the circle? And then the radius is 9. Well, the formula circumference, there are two options. You can either do 2 times pi times the radius, or the diameter times pi. Since I have the radius already, I'm going to use this first option. So circumference is 2 times pi times the radius, which is 9. And 2 times 9 is 18, so my circumference would be 18 times pi. So I would choose option D. They might also ask you about the area. Well, if you know the formula for the area, pi r squared, and you have the radius, you just substitute it in. So the area would be 81 pi, because you would substitute in 9 for r squared and get 81. So see why they have that? They're like, oh, maybe the student will think I'm asking for area whenever we were asked for circumference. And then something else you need to be able to look at, something like this. Vanetta wants to write the standard form equation of a circle given the circle's diameter. Table shows the center and the diameter of 4 different circles, and we need to write the equation for each one. So let's just pick one because all these are similar. So let's do this one. All right, so I know the center, h and k. I know the diameter, but to write the equation of a circle, x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals the radius squared. I have h, have k, but I don't have the radius. However, I do know that the diameter is twice the radius. So if the diameter is 8, the radius would be 4. If the diameter is 10, the radius is 5, because the radius is half of a diameter. If the radius is 6, or diameter is 12, the radius would be 6. So now I have what I need to write the equation for this circle. It would be x plus 3 squared plus y minus 6 squared equals 6 squared, which is 36. So then simplify everything. X plus 3 squared plus y minus 6 squared equals 36. And you can leave it in this form. You don't have to multiply anything out. You are done. So just to summarize this lesson, make sure that you know the standard form of an equation of a circle. You do leave it like this. You don't have to square this and square that. What you need to be able to pick out are the center and the radius, and then be able to answer questions relating to those. So I hope this works out for you. If not, let me know, and I'll be happy to help.